everybody.
Hi.
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 Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
It's Christmas break. It's Christmas break. Seth Erre's home, and it's Christmas break. Yeah, what? Oh, and Tim Stafford. Oh, yeah, Tim Stafford's here too.
I'm on Christmas break too.
Welcome to the Voxology Podcast, the Christmas break Voxology Podcast. You want to say anything?
Yeah.
I mean, how was your day?
Good.
Yeah? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, usually when I'm like, say something, you don't just say one word, silly bear.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are you looking for? What do you want for Christmas?
And
There's Nate Erre.
Disney.
What do you want for Christmas, boy?
On Floppy.
Floppy, yeah. Shockers.
And
Shocker.
Now back to Nate.
Now back to Nate. Ladies and gentlemen, Nate Erre's in the house, home from college. Nate Erre and I played pickleball this morning. And I will say we probably beat the best team we've ever played. Today. We didn't probably beat them. We beat them. But they were probably the best team we've ever played. So, Nate, you want to just talk about just how great that victory was for a second?
Yeah, we might be the greatest pickleball duo ever. So,
yeah,
if any of you listeners out there
are pickleballers,
want the smoke,
yeah, drive to Nashville.
Good luck.
Yes,
that's all I got.
Nate Erre, the animal most like Nate Erre is a gazelle.
Yeah.
He was all over the map.
Thank you.
The animal most like Mike Erre was a statue,
like an ox.
Yeah, and yeah, I was the
really fell apart.
Yeah, it was rough. I'm not gonna lie.
I do have something to say.
Here we go. Here we go.
I've heard
you got emails.
No, I've heard that people request
Seth videos.
Oh
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I just want to say that the first person who requests a Nate video is getting
a video,
quite possibly the greatest video to ever exist. So.
Okay. Well, how do
first
they
come,
request
first
it?
serve.
How do they request a Nate video?
I don't know. Well, if they want, like, if
my wife's asking if our listeners know we have a daughter, and the answer is yes, but she's napping, and it's 4 in the afternoon.
She's been napping all day.
Good for her.
She got up at noon and went back to bed.
Listen. If you want something bad enough, you will do anything you can to obtain it. And so I need someone out there to want a video from me bad enough.
Yeah.
To where.
Yeah. They email in and say Nate video.
Yeah,
okay. Okay. I'm just gonna save you from that.
I love you all.
Yeah. Wow. And Seth's back.
And Seth.
Yeah.
Seth.
Well, it's a long episode, growing longer. Yes, Seth Erre.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Well, guys, a big shout out to a state.
A big shout out to Wright State.
Yep.
It's where Nate goes. Yep, in Ohio.
Big shout out to people.
Love you.
Sit soon. Happy Christmas break.
Happy Christmas break.
Happy Christmas, Voxology Podcast.
Woo! Nice work, Seth Erre. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Man, you know it's when the kids are home, and yes, we have a daughter. You know when the kids are home. She is home, home from college, which is so fun. Hey, I got such great news, Tim. Ooh. First of all, Tim Stafford has another new single out, and yeah, what was the name of this one?
The End of the World.
The End of the World. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, so we went from Misfit Tribe to End of the World.
Yeah. Okay,
I love that. Then secondly, we have like many people requesting information for the Nonference, which is April 30th, May 1st and 2nd of next year. We're going to be looking at Power and Weakness with Gambus. There's a form we want you to fill out if you're interested. We covered it in depth last episode, but we've gotten a bunch of emails about that, as well as a potential idea of doing something about how to kind of re-engage the church as someone who's been hurt by it. We've gotten several responses on that, and we've gotten just a ton of great topic idea responses. So you guys are on fire. Let's just throw it out there. Also, thank you for those of you who are supportive of the podcast financially. It's an amazing gift. We have some listeners who give once a year this time of year. And so, man, we're so incredibly grateful and privileged to be doing this. And we are, just as we always say, I'm so sorry to remind us, but we are a 501c3 nonprofit who's crowdfunded, and we love you.
No.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, thank you. You can go to our website, voxologypodcast.com. You can go to patreon.com and type in Voxology, or you can go to tithe.ly. And all of those are options, but we're super grateful. Today, ladies and gentlemen, Tim Stafford talks so much in this next interview, you're going to wonder if he was ever in the room.
Yeah.
And I have years ago, I got an email from a young pastor up in Portland, Oregon named John Mark Comer. And he said, hey, we have some mutual friends. Would you ever want to come visit? And I went up to visit this dear guy, and we just forged a friendship. He is a foodie. Like, Tim, he is a foodie. Like, I can't even describe, I don't even have words strong enough to describe how much of a foodie he is in Portland, which is all things like really cool. Yeah. And I didn't, I'm a Midwest guy with Midwest sensibilities. And so when I came to visit Portland, I asked if we could go to Quiznos. And the look on his face, I wish you could have seen, like, don't ever meet your heroes. Okay. Is what that turned out to be. But we have been friends forever. And he has a new book out called Practicing the Way. And it's
coming out in January.
It's coming out, you're right, in January. And he's starting a nonprofit of that same name. But his passion is really about what apprenticeship or a student-master relationship to Jesus looks like in kind of the modern digital age. And so we have a humdinger of an interview. Is that a word? I don't even know what you call that. I mean, and forgive. There are three things that you have to forgive. Number one, he and I just slobbering words of encouragement over each other. It gets disgusting. There's a lot of that, and it's disgusting. Secondly, there's a complete absence of Tim Stafford except for one 2-sentence phrase, or two word phrase, excuse me. So that's inexcusable as well. And the third thing that's inexcusable is that Seth Erie wasn't more present. But we got him on the intro. So
there you go.
If you're willing to overlook those things. Now, Tim, so we record this after the interview.
Yes.
Tim, what were some of your thoughts, reactions, questions? Because John Mark's great and has a brain that like synthesizes stuff, and so we weren't like going through the book as much as we were just having kind of high level conversations about spiritual formation. But were there things that jumped out at you, or questions you were like, ooh, let's press into that more that we didn't have time to get into?
Yeah, there was a lot. I think that one thing I was thinking about was, which I've brought up on previous conversations, that those emails about the PhD to understand.
Yes.
Something, we'll be going through these things, and for those who are familiar, we had an email that was like, why does it feel like I have to have a PhD to just enter into a basic understanding of what the biblical text is actually getting at? And I think it's a really profound question that we've wrestled with in different ways. As we've been going through the book of Revelation, and we've been taking these terms and these ideas and these words that we were taught, or through history, we have come to one conclusion or definition of, now we're learning.
Yeah.
You've been taking us through, and we're learning what these things actually mean and why and how they are relevant to us. I think the stuff that John Mark is getting at is really important. All I could think about was like my students in the classroom, and then all the people that I talk with who just can't find a home in a church. And so I feel like this topic is super relevant to those people.
Yeah.
But they're all really beyond rhetorical ideas or cliches, or just ideologies are terms that have become ingrained in us that we don't really know what they mean anymore. Maybe didn't know what they mean in the first place. And so I kept thinking the whole time is like how it's almost like we have to, like what you're doing with the book of Revelation, we have to do with some of these discipleship practices. And that's kind of it's like interpret them again or translate them.
Exactly.
And so I think that those are the questions that I wanted to ask was like, I love that Jesus, I really, really, really love that Jesus answers questions with questions so often because it really invites a wrestle. It demands your participation in pursuing the answer to the question.
That's right.
And I think it's just a genius way of teaching and inviting people in. And I try to do that in the classroom where a student will ask a question, I'll ask a question to try to broaden. So they have to pull on those threads a little bit more to get to their conclusion. And that's what I want. Like, I think the podcast has kind of postured itself somewhat in that lane of traffic of trying to reinterpret and give real space and definition to some of these lofty ideas so that people can find a foundation to, like, in the book, he talks about like the building on the sand. And I think the church for the, not all churches, but a lot of the church has been equipping us to build on the sand. And it's like, we don't know why, and we don't know why the house shifts or the foundation starts to slide or why we're getting wet. And so all that kind of like reverberates out through suffering, I think, which is a big part of the conversation that you're about to listen to. And so those are the questions that I have. It's just like, how do we, for the people who really want this, but don't know how to re-engage it because they've been so burned by rhetorical devices and by just spiritual words and high level thought and all these different things, what does apprenticeship look like to the person who's completely torn their house down and they're trying to figure out what that foundation should be? And so I think there's a lot to, you're about to listen to an hour-long conversation that's so full, but it could be a 10-hour conversation.
Oh my goodness,
kind of unpacking how do you give this to people in a, I don't know. The other thing was we talk about spiritual disciplines a little bit, and I felt very inspired I've been thinking about spiritual disciplines a lot lately, and I've talked to you about maybe we can spend time trying to figure out what those really are and the purpose and the meaning so that people can really engage those purposefully.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to start doing that here, maybe with a few people and just be like, this is a trial run to pick at it. And I like that idea. That's one of the things that you guys will hear that really resonated with me was this idea of doing these practices in community. They're meant to be communal practices.
Boy, so true.
But, growing up reading like the Celebration of Discipline, that wasn't a book, not that it was written incorrectly, but it was a book that was not, wasn't given to me and said, do this with a group of people. It was given to me and said, learn how to do this on your own.
Yes. And community was one chapter in the book.
Right. Which is funny.
Totally. Yeah. It's so good.
Go sit in your room and think about how to be a good member of community.
Yes. So try not to throw up a little when the affirmations are flying.
There's lots of hugs and love in here.
Seriously. But John Mark has struck a chord with people under 30 in how do I manage, what is my life and the management of my life supposed to look like as a Christian?
Yeah.
And the thing is, and I can say this, because we've been friends forever, but he's the real deal. Like all the things he's talking about, he does.
Yeah. And
with great agony sometimes. And so anyway, this is a little different. This is I like how you put it. If my life's fallen apart, my faith has fallen apart, how do I find something solid to stand on? And so, if I've come to see the emptiness in kind of the ways of looking at the world around me, but I've also come to see the emptiness of like the way sometimes the church has shown me to look at the world.
Language is often similar.
Yeah. Where do I find that, like that place to begin again?
And I think that is so much of our audience. Like, and I think that's why why that little mini series on lament and God's hiddenness and that
Lord.
kind of stuff resonated so much with people. People are really hungry to find a real tangible way to re-engage. And I want to give that. I want to figure out how to crack that code, because I think it's.
Oh, here's Hannah. Come here, babe.
The implications for the church at large are huge and wonderful with
Come here a sec.
that engagement.
Absolutely. I just want to prove that I have a daughter. So Seth has been on, Nate has been on. Hannah, tell me just a little bit about the amount of sleep so far today. So you went to bed last night, 11:30, which quite honestly is just rare that it's that early.
I woke up at 12:30.
And you woke up at 12:30 the next day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then
Well, it's not done. I came downstairs. I ate a bagel.
she did eat a bagel. I saw her face.
Went back upstairs.
Yeah.
Little nap. Just woke up.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning. 4:37. I love it, man.
My baby
gift.
blanket.
That is a gift.
But let's be honest, Hannah. You pushed it so hard during finals. Hannah got, I think you got all A's on your finals, didn't you?
I did.
You pulled out,
Yeah, you did.
turned 4 C's into 4 B's.
Yeah, so.
Just on finals. So boom.
I didn't sleep all week, so I'm
No,
catching up.
you are catching up. And I love your froggy voice. So yeah, if you're on YouTube, it's now
You've seen the Christmas card right now.
Hannah. There it is.
Hannah.
And Hannah.
And Mike.
Yep. And a podcast that's already too long going longer.
Longer.
But thank you, B. But I wanted to just prove, because we were like, Mom was shouting from the other room, we have a daughter too. We have a daughter. And she's kind of the coolest of us all. So, duh.
God, I'd give anything to be able to sleep like that. It's physically impossible.
Nope. I slept. I went to bed early. And so my body decided to reward that with being awake at 4:40.
Totally.
So it's like,
You did it.
Yeah. I was like,
Yep,
really?
I know that one well.
Oh, I know you do. So anyway, friends, we'll just wrap this up. John Mark's book and the stuff is really great for those of us. We talk about, he has a line about how do you get the Bible into your body and not just into your brain.
It's a really interesting thing to play around with.
Yes, right. And so it's a really great exploration of what we call spiritual formation, or discipleship is kind of the older word. But anyway, friends, thank you as always. Merry Christmas break to those of you who are Christmas breaking. Hope it's wonderful and safe. Tim Stafford, as you well know, is singing Christmas carols to himself as he bakes cookies and, decks the halls. So
Everything you said in that sentence was wrong.
Oh my goodness. Yes, indeed. Anyway, friends, you guys are the best. We love you. See ya.
Demure, chill.
Yes. Hey, everybody. It's Mike.
This is
and
Mike
Tim.
Erre. No, I want like mindfulness Mike. Mindfulness Mike. Like
okay.
new voice.
Oh.
Can you do? He can't even do it if you tried. You
No, I
couldn't even
did.
do it.
I did mindfulness. I did mindfulness, and welcome to the Voxology
That one
podcast.
time?
I did
That
one
one
time.
time?
I was at OnSite, which is this treatment facility.
Kind of like prayer. You did it that one time, huh?
Dude,
right?
I'm telling you what, I am loving the Lord's Prayer. That's my go-to. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voxology podcast. Mike, Tim, and my dear friend, and I don't know, he's a friend of the world now, John Mark Comer.
Mindfulness coach.
Mindfulness coach, yes. John Mark has been coaching me in contemplative spirituality for a couple of decades
For the
now.
last 30 seconds.
And it is not
Goes
far
far
stuck.
back.
John Mark, welcome to the show. My goodness, thank you for making time for us. He has
Thank you, Mike.
you got a new book coming out mid-January called Practicing the Way. And it feels like this is kind of the last 10, 15 years of your life sort of summarized in a book. Would you agree with that? This is kind of the core stuff of what your life has been about for a while now.
Yes, not so much at an autobiographical, I mean, a little bit that, but more at, yes, this is the summary of my teaching and best learning on formation over the last decade and a half.
When did that, I mean, I've had such a privileged view of your life in some places. When did this, and I remember the first time I ever met you, I think we were up visiting Portland, and you were on like a 7-day fast or something. So my first experience with you was like doing this stuff and taking it seriously. When was there a moment or a season where this kind of life became beyond just I want it, I need it? Was there a moment when you discovered the fullness of it and went, this is it, this is what I'm dedicating my life to?
There was not like a before and after moment as in date on the calendar, but there was a very definitive season. And, I think most of us come to, not all, but most of us come to our vocations through wounding. And I think there is an inverse relationship between our wounding and our destiny and call before God. And, so backstory for the listener, Michael Erre and I go way back. So 2 things that are pertinent to this conversation. One, I don't think there's anyone on the planet who has imprinted on me more deeply as a teacher.
You do not
than
need
Mike
to keep
Erre.
saying this, but thank you.
And I still do not think there is a better Bible teacher living today than, you were a close second to Rob Bell back when he was teaching the Bible for like 20 years ago, before he was writing like young adult sci-fi novels. And, but since he's moved on, you have moved into the number 1 spot, my friend.
Man, I tell you what.
By process of elimination. No, I'm dead serious. Like no one. So the backstory there is I was how old was I? 25 years old.
Oh, tops.
And I was trying to learn how to preach and teach, and I did not like how it was done. And there were 1 or 2 people out there that were teaching the Bible, and they sounded like normal, down-to-earth people. And it was McManus. Bell was teaching like through Leviticus back then, and you. and when I discovered you, it was like, whatever this is like what I'm trying to figure out how to do, but 10x better. And so I asked if we did not know each other, but we had a mutual friend, and I asked if you would mentor me in teaching, and you were gracious enough to say yes, and you would come up to Portland, and we would eat Quiznos and go to Powell's Books, and I would literally walk out of Powell's Books with a box of books that was like assigned reading, and spend the next like 4 months just plowing through each one like drinking out of a fire hose. And I'm not even joking, Mike. You are the best Bible teacher I know.
Oh my goodness.
And the imprint on my life is just cannot be put into words. So that's point 1.
Wow.
Second
thank
point.
You.
That's it. You're welcome. Just going to keep talking so it's not awkward.
I'll do it. I have a Star Wars quote, though. What I want to say right now is my generation is what you've grown beyond, right? Luke to Yoda is like the best thing ever. So, John Mark, thank you. You have pastored me in some really tender places, dude. People have no idea the pastor you are. Not just the teacher, but the pastor you are and the spiritual director you were for me. And some really painful stuff. So it is so mutual, my friend. Anyway, point 2.
I love you deeply, Mike, and wish we were in the same city. But
right?
It's an honor to be your friend. So I think the second point that is pertinent to this conversation is, Mike, you and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So let me give you my kind of short spiel. All of this is a long and winding answer to how did you get into the field of spiritual formation and the short answer is through crisis. I think you and I both grew up in the evangelical model of discipleship. Yes. And there's a lot I'm really grateful for, and the evangelical model of Bible teaching. And there's a lot I'm really grateful for. You know, I grew up in the Bay Area, then was in Portland the last 20 years, and now I'm in LA. So I've lived in some of the most progressive, secular, postmodern parts of the world, not just the country. And I am incredibly grateful for the foundation of, you know, the high view of Scripture, a real sense of moral grounding. I'm able to walk around LA and just, without a lot of contempt in my heart, just think this is absolutely nuts and not feel, you know, the gravitational pull that I think a lot of other people feel. I feel just deeply grounded in the teachings of Jesus and the library of Scripture, and a growing sense of trust in Jesus' moral vision over my life. So there's a lot I'm really grateful for, but like any movement, it has its shadow side. And, you know, evangelicalism at a historical perspective was born out of the same era as the Enlightenment. And so it adopted a number of Enlightenment assumptions uncritically, one of which was kind of the Enlightenment view of the human person as kind of, you know, what Rene Descartes, who famously said, "I think, therefore I am." He called us res cogitans in Latin, or thinking things, where what's this, the Benjamin Franklin line, you know, the purpose of the body is to carry the brain around. That's like an Enlightenment mindset. Now that is not a biblical mindset, no ancient Hebrew biblical writer would ever view the human person that way. And it is B, not remotely scientifically valid. So any neuroscientists or interpersonal neurobiologists, they would all scoff at that and say that's not what the human being is, not a computer with software that you input into the brain.
That's right.
And to change the outcome of the machine of your body. That's not what a human being is. We are deeply relational, deeply emotional. We are whole people. Body is a part of it. Our emotional wiring, the memory that is encoded emotionally at an implicit level beyond our mind and our prefrontal cortex is deeply a part of who we are and how we behave, for better and for worse. Attachment systems. I mean, there's so many different kind of angles you could approach this from, but we are not a brain on legs. But unfortunately, evangelicalism adopted that view of the human person. And it had a high view of the Bible, but an unbiblical view of the human soul. And so the result was evangelicalism was built on the assumption, and this is honestly, I think, still true of the vast swath of this stream of the church, which doesn't get called evangelicalism anymore, but whatever it is. And it was built on the assumption that as a person's knowledge of the Bible increases, their spiritual maturity will increase along with it. And there's just enough truth in that claim early on in the spiritual journey to keep the myth alive. But it is a myth, because the farther down the spiritual journey you go, the less true it becomes. Meaning, if you're 22 and 3 weeks ago you were an atheist and a postmodern whatever, and you have an encounter with the risen Jesus, and you become a follower of Jesus of Nazareth, and you begin to read Scripture for the first time, the mental map of reality that comes to you through the teachings of Jesus, in particular the four Gospels and the New Testament, but Scripture as a whole, is going to radically change your life. It's going to radically alter not just your mindscape, but the whole trajectory of your future, as you begin to learn what Jesus teaches about the body and sexuality and relationships and money and forgiveness and healing and community, all the stuff. But as you begin to kind of reorient your life to the mental maps of Jesus through the teachings of Jesus as they come to us in the Scriptures, you will begin to then, in your spiritual journey, face the very long, as in until we die and beyond it, discipleship journey of getting your body to agree with your mind. Right? Or in scientific language, to get your implicit memory to finally catch up to your explicit memory. To get what's in your body and your muscle memory and your central nervous system and the the automatic emotional responses and reactions and triggers that you have to come into harmony and alignment with the vision of Jesus and the kingdom of God. And that is discipleship. That is the lifelong spiritual journey. And for that,
No, go. You're on fire.
I was just gonna say, so for that, the Bible stuff has to get into your body, and that is that doesn't happen through sermons. Sermons are the beginning of that process, but they are certainly not the middle, and definitely not the end. So the farther you progress in the spiritual journey, the more you're going to be facing challenges in your discipleship that tend not to be solved through Bible study or hearing sermons or listening to podcasts like this one. For example, I'm not all that spiritually mature, but I've been following Jesus for a while. So let me just honestly name some of the main problems I'm facing in my discipleship. 22 years into my marriage, I have a lovely wife. We are nothing like each other, different personalities, different preferences, different value systems, different families of origin, different ethnicities. And we have a lot of, kind of mild conflict. And so there is contempt, what Gottman calls one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse when it comes to marriage, that leaks when I'm tired and stressed and frustrated with my lovely wife. It will leak out of me in little sarcastic comments, or not even comments, just like emotion leaking out of me through, facial expressions that are deeply unkind and unloving and nothing like the heart of the Trinity toward my wife. An exegetical sermon series through the book of Romans is likely not going to fix that problem. And that is not to downplay a teaching series in the book of Romans at all. This is not either or. This is not my intention here is not to downplay scripture. It's to round out a holistic view of discipleship. So, I have an 18-year-old son who's in his last few months of high school. He's nothing like me. And is a bit of a bull in a china shop, kind of young Mike Erre kind of personality, great kid. And I have so much anxiety about him and his future. And when I'm stricken by that anxiety, I can behave in ways toward him that are controlling in my attempt to control him, to make him not make any mistakes so that he can do, or shaming. I will quickly in my personality, resort to, how could you, or what were you thinking? These real shaming things that then drive him further into isolation because I'm emotionally dysregulated in that moment, because I'm so anxious about a decision he's made or could possibly make. And again, the Bible Project is doing these online classes. There's one in Ephesians with Tim Mackey. I mean, freaking rad. You can sit on your front of your laptop and take a seminary level class with Tim Mackey. Unbelievable.
Seriously. Right?
That is likely not going to, though, fix my problem of being controlling and resorting at times to shame with my son. And these are major issues. If they are not resolved, if it does not resolve with my son soon, it will do permanent damage. It's not resolved with my wife. This will be, we're 22 years in, this will be our dysfunctional pattern that becomes a generational sin that our kids then have to fight to break. I do not want that. So, those deeply broken, ingrained habits of sin in my body that go back in my generational line, multiple generations, and are rooted in deep pain, even small t trauma, they are going to be solved through, the daily meditative reading of Scripture, which I never let a day go by, 365 days a year, where I do not open my Bible. But they are going to be solved through other avenues of discipleship, namely the 3 avenues that even scientifically now they've done studies that seem to produce the greatest result long-term in spiritual formation. It's basically contemplative forms of prayer, deep, close relational connection, and suffering. Those are basically the 3 paths that I need to walk.
That sounds awful.
Yes. Well, the last one,
No.
So that's a long answer. Well, okay, first off, I want to tell you how that came about in my life.
Yes, that was my follow-up.
So Ruth Haley Barton has this line in one of her books where she writes, I had come to the end of what the typical evangelical discipleship model had to offer me.
Oh, that's good.
And I remember reading that line and thinking, yes, I remember that very vividly. There was a season in my life where I had been growing in leaps and bounds through reading N.T. Wright and learning more about the Bible and going to college and reading book recommendations from Mike Erre and listening to your sermon series on Mark. And I was growing in leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And then I kind of reached a point in my maturity where I was seriously more mature than I was. But man, there were these deeper issues: perfectionism, anger, anxiety, sarcasm, contempt. And all of a sudden, reading N.T. Wright was not healing that stuff.
Yeah.
And not even listening to Michael Carl Erre, as amazing as it was.
Come on.
I just got stuck. And then as life began to get more stressful, you begin to get wounded, the pressures of adulthood. Now I started to have an iPhone at my age. Then I felt like I began regressing, not progressing.
Yep.
And if you just take the metrics of the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, I felt like every year I was becoming less loving, less peaceful, less joyful, less patient, more irritable and anxious.
While you were
exhausted.
in vocational ministry, teaching all of this. Yes.
Well, and actually that's a huge part. I think pastoring was actually making it worse. There's some real deformative stuff about pastoring. And even though it's an honor, some really deformative stuff about it.
Yes.
So all that to say, I reached this crisis where not only was I not becoming more like Jesus year over year, I was actually becoming less like Jesus year over year. And the formula I grew up with of kind of go to church and learn more of the Bible was just no longer, which had worked really well early in the spiritual journey.
Absolutely.
Was no longer working.
Yeah.
And so I both was grateful for what was behind me, but realized, man, what got me this far, I need another vehicle of discipleship. It's the same vehicle, it's discipleship, but I need another way of being with Jesus to move forward. And so it was through that crisis, in particular of my marriage and my inability to be patient with my kids and just my own mental health of just deep anxiety, exhaustion, borderline mental breakdown at a couple moments, over stress. I remember once being on an airplane and getting a critical email and like literally having a panic attack on an airplane, thinking I wanted to scream and run off the airplane.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking, whatever this is that I'm living, this is not the John 10 that I'm, life that I'm preaching. This cannot be it. So that brought me. I discovered Willard, gateway drug, discovered emotionally healthy spirituality, and the Scazzero's work. Got into therapy. And some combination of reading, therapy, and then all the emotionally healthy and started living in community. Some kind of combination of that. Discovered the contemplative kind of way of being with God and prayer. And some combination of that just brought me down the rabbit hole, and I began to grow again. And now I'm fixed, and I'm basically a saint and have no more issues. And
we'd love to interview Tammy. That'd be great.
Yes, she's not available for the next 10 years.
Totally. Oh,
so,
dude,
guys, back to you. I just said way too much. I mean, how does that?
You didn't.
You're such a smart guy. I would push back on that. How do you think about the role of Bible and discipleship and the way Enlightenment thinking has kind of,
Man, I resonate with everything. To me, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, okay, what's the gospel? Because Willard has the great, omission to the Great Commission, a little book of his essays. And the gospel, he said something years ago, it was like, the gospel we preach in the American church doesn't lead anyone to actually follow Jesus. It's just, we're vampire Christians. We're in it for his blood, and that's it. And that was so beautifully convicting for me when I realized the gospel itself is just so much bigger than what I was told about what happens if you die tonight, and he has this great line. It's what happens if you live tonight. That gospel has to answer that too. So no, totally agree. And I think I'm curious about what you think of deconstruction, because part of how we experience that phenomena with our audience is a lot of people are stripping away that part of the inheritance, the very narrow view of just Jesus as a passage to the afterlife, and he has nothing else to say. And people are waking up to this. And I really I've not ever considered, how do I get the Bible into my body? I've always, that Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Right.
That's the memory verse, for the way I was brought up.
But it's mind, it's consciousness, I think, is probably a better translation of that. So it's not mind as in your mental belief system. It's the renewal of your consciousness, the flow of thoughts and feelings and perceptions through your mind, which is a part of your body.
Yes, that's so good. So getting the Bible into my body, I think that's a really interesting, because I'm in therapy right now. Tim and I have this little segment called Two White Middle-Aged Men in Therapy. And and so I'm trying to learn how to be human. and get in touch with my body and all the things. And so what you're talking about is beautiful to me, because the gospel's for bodies too.
I got to tell you the Ortberg line, because we both love Ortberg.
We love Ortberg.
And then you got to come back to your thing, because I'm cutting you off. This is
No,
I have to say
dude,
this. It's not me. Ortberg said this to me. I don't play golf. You don't golf, do you, Mike?
I don't, my friend. We're common in that.
Tim, do you golf?
Nope.
No.
It's the only sport I have no patience for.
Yeah, I don't golf, but I understand the word picture still works for me. So Ortberg is a golfer, and he said discipleship is kind of like golf. He said the easy part is getting a vision in your mind's eye, like learning the rules of the game.
Totally.
Watching a game on TV, getting a picture in your mind's eye. This is the right posture. This is the right form. This is the perfect swing. This is what it looks like when it lands right in the right spot. This is what a hole-in-one looks like. This is par. Like that isn't hard. That's like the fun, easy part.
Yeah.
Then the hard part is the lifetime of practice over and over and over to get that vision that's in your mind's eye of what the perfect swing looks like, or the perfect shot. I don't even know if they call it a shot, whatever, putt, whatever looks like, so that when you are there and you stand on the green and you hold the, thing. I don't know what it's called.
The
club.
The putter.
This is going horribly wrong. I think the putter is a subcategory of club.
It is.
You hold the long metal ninja sword thing in your hand, and the idea is you'll stand there, you'll breathe, and you will just, without even thinking about it, your body will naturally do what it's supposed to do, and it will just follow through without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that's the process of discipleship. The easy part is learning the exegetical kind of background to the Sermon on the Mount and the New Testament and the ethical vision of Jesus and the basic practices at a conceptual level of a disciple.
Yeah.
The lifelong practice and journey is getting all of that so deeply into you. And that was where Willard's so amazing, his whole stuff on it. It's got to be the transformation of the heart, which is not just your feelings. It's the inner person that affects, again, would manifest itself in your central nervous system, in your implicit memory, and your attachment filters. To where you're so transformed on the inside that you just kind of naturally live the teachings of Jesus without even really thinking about it.
Right.
They're just like, they're not even like in your brain, I'm really trying to learn better to forgive. You just naturally start forgiving and letting go and not carrying resentment because you've been transformed in your inner person through this long process of disciplines and practices and discipleship and therapy and community and confession and this long journey you've been on. So
how does all of that differ from the self-improvement stuff I see all over Instagram? I cannot. My algorithms are swimming in people who have advice for me about how to be a better hustler, how to be a better husband, how to maximize my time and have 3 days into one day, and just all this weird stuff. How does spiritual formation differ from that?
Well, first thing I would say is where it agrees with that. A very wise man once used to say to me, all truth is God's truth.
Come on,
that was Mike Erre.
That was stolen from Rob Bell, probably.
A very wise man once said to me, wisdom is wisdom is wisdom.
Ooh.
What's the Willard line? Like, just because I'm not going to not eat breakfast just because Hindus eat breakfast, doesn't make it a bad idea.
Totally.
So the first thing I would say is I would find agreement. A book like Atomic Habits by James Clear. Holy cow, every Christian should read that book. Just wildly helpful for just a way to put together your life as a resistance, mechanism against digital empire.
Yes.
So first off, I would agree with a lot of it. And then secondly, I would say there are two radical differences between discipleship to Jesus or spiritual formation and the self-actualization life hack, project self kind of.
Yes.
And I think it's so good that you pointed that out. And I tried to write this in the book because I keep seeing formation devolve into this hyper-individualistic, post-Bible, post-Christian, progressive-y, self-helpy, therapeutic thing.
That's it.
And I'm like, whoa. There's a weird, it's confusing at first because there's aspects that are in real alignment with discipleship and other aspects that are like, wait, what? So the two radical differences are this. One is the overall kind of mental model or worldview. For example, in the kingdom of God, the highest value is not happiness, and it is not self-fulfillment. I read Arthur Brooks. Has this extraordinary new book out right now, and I read it a couple of weeks ago and just savored every page. And he's a Harvard social scientist who studies happiness. So he's famous around the world for like the happiness expert. And he has this beautiful paragraph where he writes about, if you live a good life, it will require regular seasons of unhappiness.
Oh my goodness.
And if you are not regularly unhappy, then you are not living a good and meaningful life.
Oh my goodness. Whoa.
So
I love that.
So when happiness becomes the highest value, and then when happiness is co-opted and confused with pleasure and dopamine,
that's it.
Then you have a radically different moral kind of metric system. It's the classic, why are you getting divorced? Like, we know what the teachings of Jesus are. Well, God would want me to be happy. That's a perfect example that's wildly common of where formation gets co-opted by worldly assumptions. And so, obviously in the kingdom of God, the highest metric is not happiness, it is love. And happiness, which is more akin to joy than it is to pleasure, and to peace than it is to pleasure, and in contentment than it is to getting, the perfect life or perfect whatever. That is the byproduct of becoming a person of love who is both giving love to others and receiving love by living deeply in community. So that's a pretty radically different worldview. That's not just semantics. And it will radically, for example, my Peloton I learned I do Peloton 4 or 5 days a week. Don't mock me, Michael Carlieri.
Come on. Do you wear tights?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And like a cushion under my butt.
Oh, dude, of course. You have no butt.
Of course.
You have no butt.
You can't wear like normal workout shorts. They ride up. It's just so uncomfortable. You have to.
I love it, dude. I love it.
So, every Peloton workout is a sermon.
Oh,
and
are they talking to you the whole time?
Oh, yeah. These are master instructors. They're all amazing.
Okay.
But every single workout is a masterclass level sermon, full tilt indoctrination into, it's the Peloton worldview. It's the between 20 and 40, upwardly mobile, likely live in a city or metropolitan area, progressive, radical individualist, very postmodern but wealthy, self-actualization. You're the best. You're the same. It is full on indoctrination in it, and it is sermonizing to the core. Yeah, and that's why I don't do it.
That's why I don't do it. Man.
That's clearly why you don't do it, Mike. That's why you just do CrossFit every day and carry tires. After doing mindfulness,
Totally.
So anyway, the other day, the instructor just went on this spiel, like this rant. It's like a sermon rant about how you got to drop anybody that's holding you back from your upward march to success in life. Friends, you got to drop them. That person, they're not helping you. You leave them behind. They're not moving you forward. You let them go. And I was just like, oh my, this person is moralizing, abandoning your friends when they're suffering, divorce, leaving your kids behind to follow what's on your heart. And it's like actually considered a moral good, because in their moral universe, your personal fulfillment and happiness and pleasure are of a greater value than vows that you may have made to a spouse, or being a friend to someone who's suffering and just being a pain right now and a drain on your life right now, or people that are socially needy and need love and hospitality and family, whatever it is. So, so that's where one radical difference is the worldview, the value system of the kingdom of God or the way of Jesus is not that of the radical individualist Western up and to the right project self. The other radical difference would be, I think, what Paul and the New Testament writers call grace, which is different than what evangelicals mean by grace. It's, help me out. What was the Willard one-liner on grace again? It was so...
it's not opposed to effort, it's opposed to earning?
Yeah, but his definition, he had all his definitions. Was it God's action on our behalf or something like that?
Yep, that's grace.
Yes, I like to define grace as like the ability to say and do and be what we could never say and do and be without God. It's God's empowering presence. It's very close to the concept of the Holy Spirit in us. And grace is what the Spirit gives in us. It's the gift, the grace of the Spirit that empowers us to be able to live and love like Jesus. So the difference between the discipline, the spiritual disciplines or the practices, and just habit stacking is that we're not just exercising our habit muscle to hack our central nervous system. I mean, we are doing that. Some people like the spiritual disciplines don't do anything. That's absolutely not true. They absolutely do a lot. There's like there are scientific neurological effects that silence or Sabbath or community or confession has on your actual body by itself. But it's why mindfulness is so effective, which is kind of almost like contemplative prayer without God. And by the way, scientifically, they have now proven that contemplative prayer is significantly more effective at deep change than mindfulness is without God. And Todd Hall's done some of the research on that. It's really interesting. But I digress. The difference with the practice is you're not just exercising your willpower muscle, but you're opening this deep inner wounded, confused part of yourself to the power of the Holy Spirit and giving him room and space to do in you what you could never do for yourself through habit stacking, could not even do through therapy, could not do through reading books or, doing psychedelics. There is, I'm dead serious. Like I live in LA. It's every third person who has money is out doing that as their mode of formation. Yeah. So there is an opening to grace. I found this new writer, Mike. Do you know Jacques Philippe?
Oh, yes.
Oh, bro.
I haven't read much. I've read excerpts.
I've read through almost his entire canon. They're all short books pretty much, which is, you can read them in kind of a Sabbath. But, oh my gosh, he's just pastoring my soul, Mike Erre. But he has this great, in his rubric, he's like, the primary task of discipleship is how do I open deeper and deeper layers of myself to grace?
Oof.
And that's what the disciplines are for. That's what deep community's for. It's what confession is for. That's what all of it is for. Like, how do I give God access? And, what's the Thomas Keating line? The chief function of the will is not effort, but consent.
Oh, ooh.
So, how do I deepen the surrender of my will? As openly as I possibly can to more and more of grace. So I guess that's how I would think about it. How do you think about it?
Well, I'm not interviewing me, John Mark.
This is the unofficial Mike Erre podcast. I'm not interviewing me either. All right. Well, I would love to know. I mean, how do you think you see that? You see that world? Oh, bro. I see it co-opting the spiritual formation movement right or left. And well, it's such a grief to my heart.
Yeah. Yep. I think the part I didn't appreciate for a long time is how relational this all is. Like, we have a friend of our podcast named Tim Gombas, who's a Pauline scholar, who talked about how the spiritual disciplines.
The Power and Weakness guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I loved that book.
Oh, it's so good. But he's been kind of opening my eyes to how corporate the spiritual disciplines are in the text. So bear with one another, forgive one another, show hospitality. He's like, the Spirit births a community, and it's in that arena that we practice the spiritual disciplines. The private practices are almost preparation for the practices of the Spirit when the church is gathered. And that picked up something for me that I'd known it intellectually, but hadn't thought of my participation in community like that. And so what I see when I look at the Instagram life hack model is a lot of self-effort, a lot of individualism, a lot of pride and ego. You have to.
A lot of virtue signaling.
Yeah, totally. And when I look at the way of Jesus, I see a lot of limping,
suffering,
weakness, lament, humility, community, right? All of that's precursor for community. You can't have community if you're always just posturing strength.
Competing with each other for who has the flattest abs. Yeah.
Totally.
Which is clearly you, Mike.
Dude, the Peloton, let me just tell you right now, I think that is a demonic device that Bill Gates probably planted a 5G chip in. But that's
It actually shoots vaccine into your butt through the bottom without you, and nanotech without you knowing.
But man, the mental map stuff, that's absolutely right. It's so funny. I met after one of our services years ago, I met an Olympic gymnast. And very, very famous. And I said, oh, my daughter used to be in gymnastics, and just without speaking, she just said, well, tell her to believe in herself and her dreams can come true. And, contrast that with repent, for the kingdom of heavens is at hand, right? You cannot get two more antithetical sentences. And I think there's a good corrective in the believe in yourself, like you're worthy of being loved. I got all that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you. The communal part for me was the part that I just didn't get until, I don't know, maybe the last 5 years of because I go to church as an individual, and I participate as an individual. Yes. And I never saw the spiritual practices spilling over into the judgments I would make of somebody and their teaching, or the participation or not in the liturgy. So it was just really, it was a beautiful thing. So that's been very helpful for me as well.
Have you discovered yet the work of Dr. Todd Hall from Rosemead?
I read his book after you recommended it on your Instagram account, my friend.
See,
the student has become the master. Yes, that book, it took me...
Which one did you read, the academic one or the popular one?
I don't know. Relational Spirituality is the one that you recommended.
That's the longer... There's a shorter version of it if you want, but it's too late for
What's
you
that
now,
one called?
Mike.
What's that
Come on,
one
you
called?
read all the hard stuff. You read some... He wrote one called The Connected Life. That's more... It's not super popular level, but it's like an IVP kind of level of the relational spirituality one. You get about 80% of the goodness.
Oh my goodness. And it's such goodness. It takes an evidence-based approach to suspicions we've had about what spiritual formation, what discipleship turn out to be. It says, look at this. This actually works using measures that aren't just, hey, do I feel close to God today? Yeah. And
But his whole thing, spiritual formation is a relational process by which we are loved into loving.
I love that.
I mean, that's gold.
That is absolutely gold.
It's not Christian habits alone that you do, just by yourself.
Yes. And even when I got initially into Willard and Foster, that was still the paradigm I had was, it's silence and solitude, it's Bible study, and all those things are incredible. But part of the rule of life for me had to be participation in a local church as somebody who was in submission and not leading it. And that was such an important piece for me to go and to serve and not go as the head guy or the guy getting the ego or, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. Can you talk a little bit of rule of life? You spend a whole section on, we want to be with Jesus. We want to do what he did. We want to become like him. We want to follow him. And then you give a very practical, some of the rule of life stuff you wrote, I thought was really great, man. That's not a language with which I am familiar. And some of the rule of life stuff that you wrote in the book was really great. I'm going to go back and think through some of that. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that concept is and how you've applied it? Because I think we all go, yep, I need to read my Bible more. I need to pray more, and fasting would be great, and restricting technology. But this is different than that. This felt more steps towards flourishing rather than like restrictions. So I don't know. I'd love where did you discover that concept, and how did it sort of become central for you in Tammy and the way that you guys live?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, rule of life, for those listening that are unfamiliar with that language, it's not language used by the modern Protestant arm of the church. It's ancient language and is still used all around the world in other streams of the church. But it's ancient language, not modern. So you have to clarify right off the bat, the language is rule of life.
Yeah.
Not rules for life.
Totally.
Singular, not plural. So it's
Yes.
not a list of rules.
Yes.
And to get a tiny bit nerdy, I find it helpful to talk about the original Latin word, which was regula. So actually, the biblical word is way. So in the New Testament, this is called way of life. This is language used by Paul. Mm-hmm. And then when Latin became the kind of lingua franca of most of the people of Jesus in the ancient Mediterranean around the 3rd century, the translation of that Greek word, hodos, way, path, which is a metaphor used all through the Gospels, was the word regula. And regula is a bit tricky to translate into English. It literally means a straight piece of wood. So it's connected to English words like regular or regulation or
good.
rule or ruler.
Yeah.
And this is not proven, but a lot of Greek scholars think it was the word used, regula was the word used for a trellis in a winery in the ancient Mediterranean. Because early Christian teachers picked up Jesus' teaching on spiritual formation in John chapter 15 and his very well-known word picture of abide in the vine and you will bear much fruit. So when Jesus teaches on spiritual formation, he doesn't give us a 4-part lecture in Western, bullet point format. He gives us a word picture from the agrarian world of a winery and a vine and a branch and the soil. And early Christians picked up on this image and said, hey, wait, you don't see vines growing wild on the ground. Or if you do, they are bearing barely any fruit at all. You see vines grow and flourish and thrive when they are up on a support structure, when there's a regula, a straight piece of wood built underneath it that can pick the vine up off the ground away from damage and disease and dangerous predators and lift it up toward the sun and index its growth in the desired direction. And early Christian teachers said, hey, in the same way, if you and I are to abide in the vine and bear much fruit, we need a trellis. We need a support structure. We need a rule of life to kind of lift us up off the ground and dangers and disease and index us toward the light. Andy Crouch has that great definition of rule of life as a set of practices to guard our habits and guide our lives. And that kind of both sides of guarding and guiding, guarding from and guiding to your life in the direction and the trajectory of Jesus. So I define a rule of life as a schedule and a set of practices and relational rhythms that order our life around abiding in Jesus, around discipleship to Jesus, around God and life together in God's community. You could fill in that out however you want. And the point I make in the book is that whether you are familiar with this language of rule of life or this is brand new to you, and whether you love this idea or everything in your anti-schedule, anti-intentionality, spontaneous, wounded by legalism self is screaming right now, either way, you already have a rule of life.
That's right.
Everybody does. There is nobody living that does not have some kind of a schedule and set of practices and relational rhythms by which they are ordering and organizing their daily, weekly, and regular life. Yeah. Whether it's highly intentional or really haphazard and chaotic, whether it is ordered around Jesus or ordered around your career or fitness or World of Warcraft or sex or money or shopping or athletics.
Peloton.
what Peloton, whether it is being done in isolation or done in community, whether it is leading you to the life you most deeply desire, or whether it is sabotaging your most genuine heart's intentions. Cue all the people that are like, I really deeply want to be a good dad, but I'm just so busy with work, because their rule of life has actually put work at the center of their life, not other things.
That makes sense.
That's one of 1,000 examples. You already have a rule of life. The question is not, do you have a rule of life? It's, do you know what it is? And then, is it working for you or against you?
Yeah.
I mean, is it moving you down the spiritual journey in formation toward Christlikeness, or is it wildly leading you off track and in dangerous directions? You know? So I think one way to interpret my book is that all Christians already have a rule of life, and actually most churches have a rule of life. Most churches' rule of life, even though most churches would not use this language, is this. In fact, most churches have the same rule of life. This is an Ortbergism. I was lamenting with Ortberg once. I was like, it's so sad, because the early church had two rules. They had the rule of faith and the rule of life. And the rule of faith, the original one is the New Testament, and then there were the creeds later and the councils. And the rule of faith was basically, this is what we believe. To be a Christian, you believe this. And then the rule of life that you have in the New Testament, and also in early writings like the Didache, and then gets codified more formally later by the monastic orders, and of course the rule of St. Benedict's, the most famous one. The rule of faith was basically, this is how we live. This is how you live if you're a serious Christian. So this is what you believe, this is how you live. And in the modern church, we still have, I was saying in the modern church, we still have a rule of faith. Go to pretty much, we call it a statement of faith, or a doctrinal statement. Go to almost any church website in the English-speaking world, dink around there, and you will find a page that is their statement of faith. It's their rule of faith.
That's
it's
right.
Their doctrinal statement.
That's right.
We believe this, that, and the others. The core doctrines, Trinity, creation, fall, pre-tribulation rapture, like the core Orthodox Christian doctrines.
Totally.
And a little sarcasm there.
Yeah.
And then, but pretty much no church website has a rule like, this is how we live. And and these are the ways of being. We love our enemies. We practice Sabbath. We fight off materialism. We give generously. We forgive those that have wounded us. We stay faithful to our marriages. This is how we live if you're going to be a part of our church.
Yeah.
Almost no church would have that. So I was lamenting this to Ortberg, like, it's so sad that modern church still has a rule of faith but doesn't have a rule of life anymore that tells you so much about how the Western church has gone off the rails. And he, in his very gentle Ortberg way, said, actually, John Mark, it does. And he said, most churches actually have the same rule of life. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, come to church on Sunday.
That's it.
Be in a small group.
Yes.
Serve and give.
And give. That's right.
And then he said this, and only Ortberg could say this and have it not be like cynical deconstruction. I hate church and I'm never going back. I'm just going to brunch and podcasting angry people. Only there's no anger. He is such a loving, mature person. But he said, the problem is that's not a rule of life designed to produce a high level of spiritual maturity. It's a rule of life designed to run a local church.
There it is. Yes. Or designed to grow a local church.
Crap. Because you know what we had 5 things at Bridgetown when he said that to me. You know what they were? They were practice the way of Jesus, and then they were gather on Sundays, be in a Bridgetown community, serve, and give. All we did was we realized, we should probably add following Jesus to this list.
That's so good. That's so good.
I was cut to... So one way to think about rule of life, what I'm advocating for in the book, is, hey, listen, you already have a rule of life. Your church already has a rule of life, but you likely have one that is highly unintentional.
Yeah.
That is probably not holistic.
Yeah.
That is probably very individualistic and not communal, and it's probably exhausting you with overactivity. So the invitation to a rule of life in my book is less of an invitation to a new thing.
Yeah.
It's an invitation at those 4 levels. Live more intentionally, live more slowly, live more relationally, and I forget what the 4th one was. I had something good I said.
Yeah, you did.
We're nearing the end of the week here, Mike. We're a couple hours away from
you're
Sabbath.
You're doing great.
We're slipping.
Bro. You're killing
We're
it.
Slipping.
I mean, I would say you have talked, I don't know, I'd put you at maybe 20,000 words in the last hour. And I mean, that's impressive. John Mark. That's like
a great example of the deformative effect of pastoring.
You have I love it, dude. You're literally the easiest interview ever. I think I've asked like 2 questions. It's awesome, bro. You have such a big brain. I love that, but I love your big heart even more. All right, last thing before we go, we're so gonna let you go, my friend. What role? So we've been doing just a little conversation on the God who kind of disappoints everybody, and lament, and the hiddenness of God, which is something we talked about years and years and years ago.
Oh man, your teachings on that. Whew,
oh well,
such a gift in my life.
What role? You'd mentioned suffering earlier. And it seems like part of the malformation of my cultural inheritance was everything ends in a pretty red bow when it's Jesus. And if it's, and that back to the unhappiness, man, that speaks to me so much, that quote from Brooks. What role does suffering play in all of this, do you think? And why? Because I get people who will, and I've asked, why doesn't God take this away? Why doesn't he take this desire away? Why doesn't he just change me? Or change this circumstance? And, and you give some thought to this in the book. And but I'd love to hear what you think, how you would answer that.
Well, first off, I would disagree. Somebody texted me yesterday morning, as a really good person, so this person has a lot of spiritual maturity, so I know what they meant by it. But they texted me just a word of encouragement, and they're just like, want you to know that God never disappoints, never da-da-da. And this person I know what they meant by that, but my brain was like, well, I think God disappoints constantly. What's the Peter Drucker definition of leadership? Disappointing people at a pace they can metabolize, or something like they can withstand. So I know what the person meant, but that is, I think, not what most Christian worship songs, you're never going to let me down. I don't think that's what it means, and I don't think it's true. Yeah. And certainly did not seem to be true of Jesus' own experience.
Totally.
And I think there's 2 separate questions that I just think would be good to parse out. The one question is a theodicy question of why does God not answer my prayer? When I pray, God, take away this cancer, or change my, partner who's divorcing me's heart, or why does God not answer my prayer? That's one question. And I think both you and I, there's a wide range of Christian opinion on that. There are different Christians who love Jesus and are intelligent and educated and thoughtful, who read the Bible the same way and come to very different conclusions on the spectrum of determinism, or what in theology would be called Calvinism, or meticulous sovereignty on one side, and other more kind of free will, really the question is, how do the various wills of the universe interact? God and our will, and other people's will.
That's good. That's right.
Beings' will, and nature's will, and the market's will, inflation's will, all that kind of stuff. So that's one question, and Mike Erre is the better person to ask that than me. No, not false at all. But whatever opinion you develop or conviction you develop, whether you're far on the determinism side, or an open theist, where if you're a follower of Jesus, wherever you are on that spectrum, there's a separate question that I think is fairly blatantly clear in the New Testament. And that is, what role does suffering, wherever it comes from, God, Satan, our own stupid decisions.
That's a good distinction.
What role does it play in our formation? And that's where, all of the, beginning with Jesus and going through pretty much all of the New Testament writers, have some landmark, if not multiple, paragraph or theme or moment where they declare that suffering is the crucible of our spiritual formation. So it's James, count it all joy, brothers and sisters, when you face various trials. And the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish works that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. That's his language for a high level of spiritual maturity, it's Paul. You know, we know that suffering produces character, and character hope, and you know, it's Jesus. Well, in this world you will face trouble. Be of good cheer. I've overcome. So all of the biblical writers, you know, argue in harmony that suffering is the crucible of our formation. There's that Todd Hall, again, in that book, Relational Spirituality. They've done some of the kind of just research around what is it about suffering that has such a formative effect on us. And I think this is my layman's attempt to translate his smart person and other people's academic truth, reality. There is something about suffering that so strips from us the status quo of our attachments and the way of being that we have in the world. And that stripping, which is what's so emotionally excruciating, then creates enough of a disturbance that our body and nervous system and soul has a chance to actually lay down new neural pathways and new patterns of being.
That's good.
And so, you know, you might be utterly obsessed with your job and a workaholic and prioritize your work over other meaningful things. And if you go through, let's say something horrific happens, you're falsely accused, you're fired without cause, you lose your dream job that God provided for you, you're grieving, you're heartbroken, you go bankrupt. That's horrible. And it may be from God, it may be from Satan, maybe from a demonized coworker. But either way, God might want to radically use that to set your heart free of its compulsive addiction to work, to reset your priorities, to free you from materialism. You know, one of the best ways to get free of anxiety is to have our deepest fears come true. and realize we're still okay.
We're still
I've
here.
had a couple of my deepest fears come true when I followed what I felt was the Spirit's direction over my life.
Yeah.
And my fears came true. It ruined my happiness for a season, and I feel profoundly more free now. And so now the thought of the same catastrophe happening again, it's not a pleasant thought, but I'm not anxious about it. I'm like, you know what? That would be really hard, but I would be okay. And it took that suffering to free my heart of the anxiety of it. So I think suffering can set us free in such extraordinary ways. It's why people on the other side of suffering are often so much more peaceful, calm, joyful, content. And, you know, there's an interesting cultural thing here, Mike. There's been so much good work done in the therapeutic world and the neuroscience world on trauma over the last 3 or 4 decades. I mean, just extraordinary learnings. It lines up beautifully with a biblical view of the human person and sin. It uses different language than sin, but it's basically a study of the second dimension of sin, which is not sin done by us, but sin done to us. And the early literature, if you were a psychologist 10, 15 years ago, all of it was there was that whole field of research they called post-traumatic growth, because they realized a lot of people that survive trauma actually are not only stronger on the other side, but are actually like healthier on the other side. So suffering and trauma seem to create like a Y in the population experience. Some people seem to be almost permanently wounded by it and never emotionally or relationally recover. But then a huge chunk of the population seems to grow as a result and become not just like more moral or more content, but actually become happier and more peaceful.
Yeah.
And so all sorts of research into this. Wow. But what's interesting is, so if you were a therapist 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and helping somebody through trauma, you would be attending to their wounds, validating their experience, but helping them, like, how do we take the fork in the road to move toward post-traumatic growth, which obviously lines up very much with the New Testament's, you know, commands and calls and encouragements and comfort. But now it's all been kind of caught up in the socio-political ideologies, in particular around critical theories, power analysis, new ways of thinking about history, human experience, all of which have some truth in them. So now it is so wildly unpopular to talk about that, that now there's less and less people discovering help and discovering hope on the other side of their pain and suffering. And this is where I think there's a real unique opportunity that the gospel and the way of Jesus has, because it has this incredibly robust view of sin and sin's ability to wound and damage the human soul. And that lines up beautifully with much of the most recent learnings about trauma. But yet it has this hopefulness and this this sense of uplift of how God, if you open that trauma, wounding, pain to God, can deeply like mature and grow and free and calm you through it. And that, and without remotely negate. And I'm not talking about the Christianized trite version and with this preaching that like, oh, God's going to use it, God's in control, and just put your trust in. That's absolute crap. That's spiritual bypassing, and people that haven't been through trauma or who are in denial about their trauma, who are trampling over yours. I'm not talking about evangelicalism. I'm talking about the New Testament. I'm talking about James and Peter and Paul and Jesus. And I'm talking about the suffering of Christ and how Paul claims that it's when we co-participate in the sufferings of Christ, that is the pathway to glory.
Right.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So what's the glory in New Testament language, in Pauline language, what's the glory on the other side of suffering? Like that's the question of discipleship.
Yeah. Oof. Man, I'm so glad I asked that. That was great, dude. So Practicing the Way is a book, but it's also an organization, right? You are launching this.
Yeah, kind of as our manifesto book, but yes.
Yeah, so to just give us a little bit on that, because I know you have courses, you have a rule of life help at the end of the book, but your intention is to put a lot of resources out there in the hands of folks who are interested in exploring this more.
Yep, and this book just reads like any of my other books. It's not a workbook or something, but it's written by me, not by a team of people. But it would be if you read it and you are all inspired toward some of what it's inviting you into or calling people or pointing people toward, then yes, we're in the process of creating this organization, Practicing the Way. And it's back to what we said earlier about the evangelical model of discipleship and how do we get the Bible into the muscle memory of our body. So we are trying to recapture a more ancient, more biblical New Testament, more Hebraic, more holistic, more trauma-informed, emotionally informed relational model, holistic relational model of discipleship to Jesus or spiritual formation. And then what we're trying to do as an organization is work to integrate this model of discipleship into actual local churches. So there's two meta goals we have as an organization. One, we want to put discipleship to Jesus back at the center of the church, not in the margins. Because of evangelicalism, discipleship is like an optional secondary path for people if they're into it after, quote, salvation in church. And those things are not separate biblically, but they are in the American church. And so one, we want to kind of elevate it and put it back at the center. But two, we want to actually like change the model of discipleship from the post-enlightenment evangelical Bible study information transfer model, information and church attendance, to the kind of more ancient biblical model, holistic model that is deeply effective for change. And so at a very pragmatic level, we are in the process of creating 10 resources right now. One is the Practicing the Way course that isn't quite out yet. It'll be out in March. And it's an 8-week primer on spiritual formation that you could run. All of our stuff's designed. You can run it with like 2 of your roommates at the kitchen table or with your small group, or you could take 100 people at your church through it in course format, or you could do it as an entire church. But it's an 8-week course called the Practicing the Way course. That's a primer on spiritual formation. You kind of read the book alongside it, and you kind of begin to step into some practices and new ways of being. And then we're creating 9 practices that are all kind of ancient spiritual disciplines. Some you do alone, like solitude and, contemplative prayer. Others you do with people, like Sabbath and community. Others are a mix, like scripture. Then there's a bunch that are about people outside the church, hospitality, service, witness. And so there's these 9 practices that are 4-week experiences that, again, you do in a community with a small group or a class at your church or just a couple friends around the table. and teach you to integrate an ancient discipline like Sabbath or prayer or fasting or generosity into your rule of life, just meaning into your overall kind of way of life as a disciple of Jesus. And we're trying to help people find the building blocks to construct a rule of life for the modern era that is stronger than the deformative effect of digital empire and can really open deeper and deeper parts of us to God so that we don't get stuck. Or if we are stuck, 10 years from now, we're all a bit more loving or a lot more gentle, peaceful, patient, kind.
Dude.
More like Jesus.
Come on.
More with Jesus.
Yeah.
Chaos.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Life. That would be pretty great.
Yeah.
And everything's free, by the way. It's all not the book. I
love
can't
that.
give that for free, but everything else is free.
That's where Tim Mackey has just done a great gift. He's taught us you can give away stuff and not be afraid. It's just awesome. I'm so proud of you, my friend. I love you. I'm proud of you. Thank you so much for the work you're doing.
I love you. I respect you so much, Mike. You are such a older brother to me in gift. And it's an honor to have been in your orbit.
Thank you, dude. Oh my goodness. John Mark, stop. Let's talk about Tim Stafford for a second. How good looking is that guy?
Jeez.
I know, right?
Bro,
how good
so
looking is he?
intimidating. I think I overtalked out of intimidation because I don't look like Tim.
I know.
That's right.
Dude, if Jesus were white, this is what he would look like.
Hold on. He's not?
Hey, we'll let you go, man. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Love you so much.
Love you too, buddy. Take care of
Peace
yourself.
to you all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Voxology Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is made possible by listeners just like you. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology Podcast or on Tithely, tithe.ly, search Voxology Podcast. You can interact with the hosts on Facebook /Voxology Podcast or on Instagram at Voxology Podcast and on Twitter or X, whatever it is, at Mike Erre. Thank you for walking this long road with us.